First of all, I'd like to thank Ted. That was an awesome intro. I sincerely appreciate that. Also, thank you to the Distinguished Speakers Series for hosting me. You guys approached me months ago, and you were so adamant about it, and it really made me feel very welcome, so thank you. Also, I see a lot of old, friendly faces from my days growing up here in Reno in the audience, so thanks for coming out, and I hope maybe you learned something in the process. Just kind of a brief overview of the event. I'll speak how Kaboom came to be and how it relates to my deployment in Iraq. I'll do a reading, answer any questions any of you all have, and then I'll sign some copies outside. If for anyone interested, Sundance Books was really cool about showing up and bringing many. So if you're interested, great. If not, no worries. Also, public service warning. I'm a writer, not an orator, and my public speaking up to this point is limited to college kids and soldiers. So occasionally, especially off the cuff, I will slip into colorful language. I assure you, it wasn't the wonderful Reno academic institutions I grew up in that taught me that language. It was dark. So I do apologize ahead of time if that occurs. It's probably. All right. So originally, Kaboom started. It was November 2007. I was about a month out. I was a scout platoon leader with the 25th Infantry Division, and we were about to deploy to Iraq. Of course I was scared. It's not something you talk about. But yeah, I was scared out of my mind. And I've always enjoyed writing, and I figured I'd read a couple of military blogs just kind of educate myself on what I was getting myself into. And I was like, I can do this, no problem. So I figured this is an easy way to communicate with family and friends. And nobody likes those mass emails. When somebody goes to London for 3 months, they're rediscovering the world. Everyone gets those and hates them. So I figured, if they're interested, here's this forum they can come to and read about it. If not, they don't have to. So no worries. It was also good. I think some part of me, like many young people, I was sure I was going to write the Great American novel someday. So I was like, oh, this would be great note-taking for that down the road. That was just kind of a secondary thing. Why title it Kaboom is often a question I get. Frankly, it was just kind of an irreverent way for an irreverent kid to deal with what I was getting myself into. At that point, many of my friends from the basic course and such had been hit by IEDs, and I had a couple friends lost that way. And it seemed inevitable that I was going to get hit too. So it was kind of my way of making it comic booky, like, haha, insurgent, kaboom, joke's on you, right? I'm already writing about it. It does seem comic booky, it can't be. And that was just kind of the mindset. I was 24, and some would argue mentally younger than that. So it was my way of wrapping my head around a very, very real, very severe situation. So I started blogging right then, and it's not like the movies, like the Vietnam movies, you picture you just drop right there in the middle of the bush, fresh from America. It's not like that anymore. What you'll do is a very gradual process. You'll move from, we were stationed in Hawaii, and you move to Germany, and then I spent about 2 weeks in Kuwait training out. Then you go to the large forward operating base, which is just pretty much little America in Iraq. And then from there, you finally go out to these combat outposts where you and your platoon and your company are living amongst the Iraqis. As part of the big shift to counterinsurgency strategy employed by General Petraeus as part of the surge. Kind of changing, probably what Ted went through, commuting to the war. We were already there, we were living, if the electricity shut down in the town, it shut down for us. It was showing them that we were living amongst them. But we'll get more depth into that a little bit later. The exact post, I think, so that first month it was just kind of random blurbs, just kind of like funny anecdotes that was occurring. I think the first post that I realized that Kaboom had evolved into something else for me was about a month in. We were pulling security, mounted security, and a firefight broke out between the Iraqi army and the Sons of Iraq. Now, if you're not familiar with the Sons of Iraq, they were also a shift to the counterinsurgency strategy. They were essentially paramilitary security guards hired by the United States military to provide additional security for each town. Now, all too often, the backside of this was they were former insurgents, kind of the bottom layer of insurgents who were just trying to make a paycheck. And this was a way for them to earn a paycheck and wear a uniform and switch sides. It created some awkward situations because a lot of times these guys had American blood on their hands. But so this January 08, and yes, technically the Iraqi army and the Sons of Iraq were on the same side. But as ambiguous a situation as Iraq was, that didn't mean anything. Between Sunni Shia rivalries, tribal rivalries, just personal rivalries, these guys just started getting a huge firefight. And we rolled right into the middle of it and conducted a dismounted movement to contact right at the gut. It was your welcome to war moment that all combat veterans have. And I came back and I filled out my brief, and it was night by the time I finished, and I shouldn't be going to bed. I couldn't go to bed, so I just blogged about it, and it made me feel better. I was trying to make sense of a very messy, odd situation that frankly didn't have any sense to be gathered from it. And I posted it and I read it, and I was like, this is kind of weird. I wouldn't have come back and emailed my mom like, dear Mom, got shot at today. It was awesome. But the effect of it was essentially the same. That's really weird. You hear me drinking water. But yeah, so I think at that point I realized that it evolved into kind of personal therapy for me, which soldiers often do with writing. So weeks passed by, and our lives became more confusing and muddled and chaotic. My post reflected that, and being a voice straight out of theater, the blog sphere was very receptive to it, and I was aware that my readership was growing, the comments were growing, and it was just kind of a silly little distraction for me to take my mind off of the day-to-day life that was going on. And then you get back to the mission, and I fill out my report, and be like, I'll hop on the computer, see what crazy things those Americans are saying now. But it was almost very positive. I mean, it was good for me, because it's very easy to become self-righteous when you're over there, and you're convinced that no one cares about what you're doing except those that are right with you. And it was good for me, because it was a constant reminder that there were people that cared. Maybe there weren't enough of them that were engaged in what was going on, but there were people out there that did care and were concerned and wanted you and your guys to come home no matter how they felt politically about the war. So part of me was kind of hoping to kind of fill that gap. Everyone always talks about that wide gulf between veterans and civilians, and it's very real. And it's partly because 1% of our population serves in the military now. It's huge. Vietnam, there was a draft, so sequentially more family members, more friends were involved. Part of me thought it was a really great opportunity, speaking straight from the events, straight from I was about to slip it. Straight from the sun, as it were, to explain maybe what counter-insurgency really means, what being in Iraq in early 2008 really means. In 2008, about 6 months in, my battalion commander told me that he wanted to make me an XO, which was it's kind of a staff position, it's a promotion. I said, that's great, sir, but I'm getting out of the Army when we get back from Iraq. I think this promotion should go to somebody that staying in. For my mind, it was a very logical approach. He did not see it that way, and a discussion ensued that can only occur in military circles of me against the wall getting screamed at, and he had some points. Looking back on it fairly, you're not supposed to ask why and say, well, sir, I have a better idea. But conversely, I think any leader worth a damn would have done the same thing I did. I didn't think I was going to win, but I wanted to stay with my guys.